Everyone has their favorite Saturday morning cartoons, dearest original Disney movies, and most liked Nickelodeon shows. Our childhood was filled with wonderful TV programs, but some of the most beloved have stayed with fans even now because they were amazing shows. For better or worse, some animated shows for children really didn't know the line between thrilling adventure and terrifyingly traumatic, and some were even designed to scare children on purpose. For this reason, here I present to you children's cartoons with very terrifying characters. Number 7. Him, the Powerpuff Girls. In the Powerpuff Girls, Him is depicted as a mysterious, superpowered creature with red skin, somewhat effeminate and immortal, like a devil with lobster claws, red skin, pointed ears, black hair, sinister green eyes, and a pointed nose. It's implied that he could be Satan due to his cross-dressing, but he's so sinister that his real name can never be said. Being one of the darkest entities in this cartoon, he is extremely manipulative and diabolical, having no motive other than the personal pleasure of seeing others suffer, and treating everyone around him as toys he can play with whenever he pleases. Unlike most of the other villains in the series, he learns from his mistakes and can adapt and change tactics if the situation requires it. Also, unlike most other villains, he scares even the other criminals in Townsville, as he could easily destroy the world if he wanted, but prefers to play mind games with his victims most of the time. Aside from his psychopathic, bitter, and dominant nature, he is generally very charismatic and always speaks in an effeminate echo, which changes as he gets angry into a deep, masculine, and commanding voice that can change to an even more serious one. When he's not causing chaos, he can be seen to be very polite, as demonstrated in the episode Telephonies, where the Powerpuff Girls broke into his dimension and spoke in an unqualified and non-violent manner. Number 6. The Demonic Spirit, Samurai Jack. The demonic spirit is a minor antagonist in Samurai Jack. It is a nameless, mysterious, malicious, and extremely powerful being that devours souls. When it manifests before Jack inside the haunted house, the demonic spirit appears as a serpentine dragon made of black flames. It seems to have horns protruding from the sides of its head, and its eyes are empty and white. In the realm where it keeps the souls of its victims, the spirit has a muscular humanoid body with the head and claws of a beast, resembling a cross between a dragon and a wolf. It has small, round eyes with black pupils and a mouth full of permanently exposed fangs, giving it a wild expression. It still appears to be made of black flames, which it can also summon at will. The origins of this creature are unknown, but it has apparently devoured countless victims, the last of which is Cooney's family. After capturing them, the demon kept them alive and forced Cooney to lure more victims for it to devour. Cooney was alone in the forest when Jack found her, which caused Cooney to retreat to the house and lure him inside. After Jack investigates the house, the demon finally reveals itself. However, despite Jack's best efforts, the demon wins the match and consumes his soul. Within the demon's own realm, Jack manages to break free from imprisonment and confronts his captor in a fierce battle. Despite the spirit's power, Jack ultimately destroys the monster by deflecting its own fireball attack, finally releasing the souls of its victims. When Jack returns, Cooney reunites with her family, as the demon's curse on their house is lifted. It is unknown how Aku's destruction in the past affected its existence in the future. The demonic spirit can possess objects and place a curse on any structure, as seen in Cooney's house. Once under its control, the spirit can manipulate reality to trap victims entering the house. In its true beastly form, the demon manipulates dark energy in combat. While in melee combat, it manifests various weapons, including a warhammer and a sword. For ranged attacks, it throws dark fireballs that can be guided in flight. The spirit appears to be very resistant to attack, as Jack's sword only briefly dispersed its body before it reformed into a larger size. However, it seems to be vulnerable to its own energy, as Jack kills the spirit by deflecting one of its fireballs back at it. Number 5. Shapeshifter, Gravity Falls. The Shapeshifter, also known as Experiment 210, is a creature capable of taking any form it has seen. During the excavation of Ford and McGucket's bunker, Ford found a mysterious egg in the forest that later hatched into what would come to be called the Shapeshifter. The two initially planned to use the creature to test the cryogenic stasis chambers of their underground laboratory, but Ford was fascinated by its ability to change shape and learn speech, and kept the creature in a cage to study, much to his assistant's dismay. Despite loving the shapeshifter and thinking of it as a pet, Ford always wore a surgical mask while interacting with it and refused to show it any of the monsters contained in his journal as a precaution against any trouble it might cause. These precautions ultimately enraged the shapeshifter, who decided to take the form of McGucket and trick Ford into giving him his journal to gain more power, a trick that almost worked until Ford discovered a tied-up McGucket next to the shapeshifter's broken cage. Then the two fooled the creature by leaving a decoy journal in one of the cryogenic tubes and freezing it when it went to pick it up. Afterwards, Ford and McGucket agreed to seal the entire bunker due to the unpleasantness of the experience. While they didn't know it at the time, this action later prevented the shapeshifter from leaving the bunker once it was released from its stasis tube, keeping it trapped underground to this day. When Dipper and Wendy meet the shapeshifter, it is in the form of a can of beans, pretending to be the author of the journals to steal Dipper's Journal 3, who mistakenly gives the shapeshifter his journal. After looking at it, the shapeshifter becomes fascinated by the many new forms it can take. After realizing the danger they are in, Dipper tries to recover the journal. Wendy then manages to stun the creature so it drops the journal and the two flee. After meeting up with Mabel and Suze, they formulate a plan to get rid of the shapeshifter. Dipper, Mabel, and Suze blast the creature with water, accidentally hitting Wendy. The jet temporarily stuns the shapeshifter, but it tries to deceive Dipper by taking the form of Wendy in a last-ditch effort to steal the journal. The shapeshifter attacks Wendy, and Dipper gets confused about who is who, asking the real Wendy for a sign. When the real Wendy purses her lips, Dipper strikes the shapeshifter with Wendy's axe, and the two push the monster into the stasis tube to freeze it. Before being completely frozen, the shapeshifter gives Dipper one last warning about meddling too much in the town's mysteries and the author, saying he will end with a fate worse than he could imagine. The last form it takes is Dipper screaming, saying it's the last form Dipper will take, an event that later occurs in Northwest Mansion Mystery, but is reversed in the same episode. The shapeshifter is a manipulative, cunning, and quick-thinking creature. Without even knowing Dipper, Wendy, or their quest for the author, it effectively set up an elaborate ruse to gain their trust and get the journal. The shapeshifter's default form is a viscous white body with 4 slender legs. Its right arm is slender with a 3-fingered hand, and its left arm is swollen with a clawed hand. It has 2 pink eyes and a snout with 4 fangs hanging on the outside of the mouth and 6 smaller teeth on the inside. Its abilities allow it to change not only its appearance, but also its complete form, including its voice. Therefore, it can be as small as a gnome, or as tall as the author, or as amorphous as fire. Its desire to study the journals to assume different forms apparently indicates that it cannot change into new forms unless it has scanned a form or seen an image of it. It can also mix forms to create new monsters or become 2 things at once. Number 4. Ko, the Facestealer, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Ko, also known as the Facestealer, is a minor antagonist in the Avatar series. He is one of the oldest known spirits and is very knowledgeable and manipulative as well as malevolent. Ko enjoys stealing the face of anyone who expresses emotion in his presence, due to his terrifying and grotesque appearance. Ko also likes to instill fear in anyone who meets him, thus stealing their face. Ko only plays a minor role in the story itself, telling Ong about the ocean and moon spirits, but he is responsible for causing the pain of at least one of Ong's past lives. He makes his first appearance after the Avatar Ong goes to Ko's lair with the help of Roku. Ko takes many of his design inspirations from a centipede. His face is an eye that can display the face of another person, mainly someone who met him and then lost their face to his powers. By default, however, he has a white face with red lips. Since his face is mutable, Ko does not have consistent hair or eye colors. Ko is the nemesis of Avatar Kuruk, a water tribe avatar and the 3rd avatar preceding Ong. Due to the extremely successful tenure of Avatar Yongchen as Avatar, which resulted in multi-generational peace, Kuruk did not have to do any work as her successor, leading him to a casual life and an arrogant attitude. He eventually found his lover named Umi and intended to marry her, only for Ko to steal her face as punishment for Kurok's arrogance. Kurok spent the rest of his life hunting the spirit and still pursued him well into death. However, he could not proceed with the spirit's death, as he realized that Ko's death would also result in the death of his lover. When Ong first meditated in the spirit world, he sought information about Tui and La, the ocean and moon spirits. Roku first told him about Ko, as he was old enough to know Tui and Le before they crossed into the mortal world. He also warned Ong of his malevolent nature and to not express any emotion in front of him. The ancient spirit did not give a direct answer in their encounter, simply stating that Tui and La were opposites, and told the Avatar that he had already met the spirits. When Ong realized that the spirits were the koi fish in the spirit oasis, Ko made his move and attempted to steal Ong's face, but just missed his brief expression of emotion. Before leaving, he told the Avatar that they would meet again. Despite this, however, he did not meet Ong again in his current life, nor in the subsequent one as Korra. Number 3. Tony Maycheck, Batman Beyond. Tony Maycheck was a close friend and employee of Bill Wallace until a tragic accident transformed him into Earthmover. Tony had a daughter named Jackie, whom he raised alone after losing his wife under unknown circumstances. While working for Bill, he disapproved of dumping toxic industrial waste into a shaft of an abandoned mine. However, when Bill offered him a partnership in his thriving company, Tony decided to turn a blind eye, thinking of Jackie's future. During a waste dumping operation, when most of the barrels were secured, a landslide caused a collapse and Tony was bathed in dirt and toxic waste. He was given up for dead, but the catalyzing properties of the chemicals mixed his molecules with the soil under which he was buried. Over the years, Tony's decomposed corpse became one with the earth, which he then could control in various ways, turning him into an Earth controller. 10 years after the accident, Earthmover began to stalk his daughter. Despite being permanently attached to the ground, he could conjure drones made of soil and rock that functioned as his arms, legs, and eyes. One night, a monster made of dirt was seen and followed by Terry McGinnis, who had been studying with Dana Tan. The following night, when Bill was showing the trio the location of his new factory, Earthmover shook the ground under their feet and threw containers of toxic waste. He also conjured another soil monster that was repelled by Batman. Earthmover was momentarily frustrated. Later that night, he went after Bill and Jackie at their home. He opened a hole in the ground, kidnapped Bill, and then sunk their entire house with Jackie inside. When his daughter ventured out, she found Tony's immobile body, surrounded by chemical barrels that fed and kept him alive. Disoriented and overwhelmed by grief, Earthmover accused Bill of stealing Jackie and premeditating the tragic accident because he really didn't want a partner. Earthmover wanted Jackie to stay with him and tried to kill Bill by submerging him in the ground. Batman thwarted him by breaking the containers of toxic waste that nourished him. Despite his defeat, the dying corpse gathered enough energy to break a rock that blocked Jackie's escape route, allowing her to continue living. Moments later, Earthmover succumbed and finally found his peace. Tony was originally a normal human with no unusual abilities, but after being soaked by industrial chemicals, he acquired tremendous mental powers. He could make the earth tremble and open, and mold and control the earth and all its properties. Number 2. King Ramses, Courage the Cowardly Dog. King Ramses is the ghost of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. He appears in the episode The Curse of King Ramses. He inflicts 3 plagues on the Bag family to recover an ancient slab that was stolen from his tomb. Ramses is the ghost of a pharaoh whose tomb is disturbed when 2 criminals loot a stone tablet. He first confronts the 2 tomb thieves who hid the slab next to the Bag's water pump, sending a swarm of locusts to devour them. When Courage finds the relic, Eustace is initially uninterested, but immediately clings to the slab when he realizes it's worth $1 million. A researcher tells Eustace he has come for the return of the stolen slab, but he refuses and shuts the door when not offered money. That same night, Eustace, now obsessed with his future fortune, babbles about what he will buy with the $1 million. Loud noises are heard outside, and Eustace opens the door. King Ramses visits the farm and demands the return of the slab. Even after being warned to suffer the mummy's curse and Muriel's insistence on returning it, Eustace refuses. King Ramses then unleashes a water plague, one of the three listed on the slab. He floods the house, but Courage opens a massive drain in the basement. Once more, Eustace declined the second request for the return of the slab. The next plague is loud music on a phonograph. Courage locates the source and destroys it with a bat. Insisting on breaking the Baggas family spirit, King Ramses requests the return of his slab for the last time. Amidst the third plague, Eustace bribes Ramses for the slab, telling him 1,000,000 is as low as he could go. Eustace yields when they are about to be devoured by locusts, and Courage throws it out the window, but Eustace quickly changes his mind and claims the slab again. King Ramses then appears, disgusted, and Eustace taunts him for having used up all his plagues. Enraged, Ramses raises his arms and simply calls the third plague the swarm of locusts upon Eustace. Later, when the slab is finally returned to King Ramses' crypt, as announced by an archaeologist on TV, a hieroglyph depicting a screaming Eustace can be seen. King Ramses has a skull that recalls the Egyptian funeral masks, but is much more ruinous and skeletal. He has orange flesh, purple eyes with bluish whites and pink hair, and wears a dark green Egyptian pharaoh's robe with a yellowish-green gauze around the shoulders. Burnt tangerine hair protrudes from his skull. King Ramses is somewhat severe and quiet, but becomes irritated quickly. He shows great disdain towards anyone directly responsible for stealing his slab from his tomb, and will quickly punish them for doing so. However, he gives his victims, whom he considers innocent, the chance to hand over the slab and warns them of what will happen if they refuse to do so. He also showed to be annoyed or irritated if the person still refused to hand over the slab, implying he dislikes doing what he has to do to get what he wants. It is also implied that he is capable of using any of his plagues at will, even after deploying them all in quick succession, as evidenced when Eustace still refusing to hand over the slab after surviving the 3 plagues. King Ramses uses the locusts again to retrieve the slab, to Eustace's surprise and horror. Number 1. The Leech. Adventure Time. The Leech is the main antagonist of Adventure Time. He is an ancient cosmic being that is the manifestation of the inevitable death of all things. His essence was deposited on Earth millions of years before the start of the show through a catalyst comet, but he acquired a physical being near the end of the Mushroom War through a mutagenic bomb after possessing a person who had been submerged in mutagenic waste. His first appearance is in His Hero, where the hero Billy defeats him. He was imprisoned in the ancient tree in the Candy Kingdom, but escaped and played an important role throughout the series. The Leech kills Prismo and releases criminals in the Crystal Citadel. However, at the end of the episode, the Leech is turned into a harmless baby by the healing blood of the Citadel Guardian and is adopted by Tree Trunks and renamed Sweet Pea. In the episode The Comet, a purple comet reveals that the Leech, the same as Finn, began as an incarnation of the Catalyst comets. The purple comet explains that he has incarnated both all that is good, which includes Finn's comet incarnation, and all that is bad, which includes the Leech's comet incarnation, in their respective time periods. In the episode Gold Stars, it is revealed that the power and evil of the Leech are still contained within Sweet Pea, and can take over when Sweet Pea is threatened and emotionally charged. Sweet Pea is unaware of the evil lurking within him, attributing his blackouts and dreams of being the Leech to being just a dream. Through the actions of Finn and Jake in the present, the Leech exists in all dimensions due to the fact that his hand fell into the portal to all universes. After the final episode, the spirit of the Leech is still dormant in Sweet Pea. Before his change, the Leech wore a crown. Another characteristic of his are his horns, one of which is broken. However, before being defeated by Billy, both horns were intact, so it is possible it broke as a result of that encounter. The Leech also dresses in a large, loose robe with multiple layers and a large cloak that is severely torn at its end. Physically, the Leech is also notably large. It is shown that the Leech rivals in size with Billy. The Leech's arms are bare with little or no flesh, and his skeletal hands burn with a spooky fire when casting spells. His face is defined by horrible green lights when pupils peek through the empty eye sockets, and the pale skin of the undead titans against his skull without a nose. His skin is frayed from his lips, revealing a perverse and perpetual smile. In the episode Escape from the Citadel, the Leech emerges from the crystal in an explosion, revealing a fully skeletal form with a spinal column and pointed shoulders, several bone fractures, and a small metal plate attached to his rib cage. The Leech is driven by a rather unique goal: to destroy all life. He seems to show little interest in anything that does not advance his ambitions towards this dark end. He also has an apparent hatred for all living beings. As Princess Bubblegum said, his only desire was to destroy life, and his wish from Prismo was the extinction of all life. It has been said he brings sadness wherever he goes. In the episode Wake Up, Prismo implies that the Leech's desire to eliminate all life is so strong that he literally ignores everything else. When the Leech was trapped in the time room, he was immobile and did absolutely nothing until there was a way to be free, showing that the Leech has absolutely no other focus than causing mass extinction, and when he can't do that, he chooses to do nothing at all. He is tremendously cunning and quickly learns from his mistakes. He methodically targets people and things that have proven to be a problem for him in the past, either by destroying them directly, as in the case of the hero's gauntlet, or using them as pawns to advance his own agenda, as in the case of Billy to manipulate Finn. As shown in the episode The Leech, he is very skilled at deception, as he is able to trick Finn and Jake into helping him while disguised as Billy. At the end of the episode, he mockingly thanks Finn for opening the portal. He is a quick thinker, pretending to be horrified when Finn tries to crush the Enchiridion, even though that would cause the portal to open. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed my video, I'd love to recommend another one for you to watch.